Okay, and welcome back. In this video we're going to install the tail wheel, but before we can do that we have to make sure that the rudder is going to be in the right position, and in order to do that we have to hinge the rudder back onto the vertical stabilizer. In order to do that we have to have these CA hinges put back into the rudder. So what I've done is I've made a little mark on either side of the CA hinge, and I'm going to stick it's a T, called a T-pin. It's just a simple little T-pin. I'm going to stick a T-pin in the middle of both sides of the hinge. Okay, and note the orientation of the hinge. That vertical line is going up and down like that. Okay, and the T-pin is to make sure when you put the hinge inside the rudder that it only goes in halfway. So there it is with the you got pins sticking here, so don't stick yourself. So that hinge is now in exactly halfway, and then I'll do that for all the other hinges. Now we're not gluing these in yet, that'll come later. All we're doing is trying to make sure the rudder is in the right position so we can find the right position for the tail wheel. But we'll need to have these hinges in a little later when we finally get ready to put the rudder in place. Okay, so there are the three CA hinges, and I was pushing those in through just a piece of scrap balsa. That's not that significant. So those hinges are in place. Let me get the airplane situated and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. I'm going to take the tail wheel first, lift the plane up from the bottom and insert the end of the tail wheel into the hole that's already there, and then push it up and turn it 90 degrees. And then let that tail wheel come up through this last hole and stick on out like that. Now it's up way too high, but that's all right. The next thing we're going to do is make sure that this tail wheel slides in easily and all the way. As you can see, if you get it in all the way, you really can't see that wire inside the rudder. So now that that's in place, I'm going to put the three hinges in one at a time. One hinge started, two hinges started, and there we go, three hinges all started. Okay, I'm going to use a little box here to hold that up so it doesn't bump the tail wheel on the bottom. And we're going to push the rudder in carefully, okay, and making sure that the rudder is even on top and all the way back. And let's see, that tail wheel needs a little bit of a push. I'm going to take a little ruler here, a steel ruler. I'm going to push that tail wheel into the rudder all the way, like that. Okay. Now the rudder is flush at the top, the hinges are all the way in, and the tail wheel is all the way in. Okay. So now that that's in place, we're going to turn the airplane over carefully, and I'm going to set it down so it doesn't bump the vertical stabilizer. I'm going to take one of my little blue things here to hold it up, actually. It's like that. Okay. And you can all barely see that, I guess. Okay. So now we're going to make sure that nothing's moved. Everything on the rudder looks good. And now we can fix and mark where the two holes are going to be for screwing this white piece that holds the tail wheel in place. Okay, so let me get I need my pin vise to mark it. So let me come right back and I'll get my pin vise. Okay, I got several tools. First off, I got the pin vise. That'll drill the pilot hole. I got the two tail wheel screws that are in their bag. That's the M3 by 12. Got a couple of screwdrivers. And I got the 1.5 millimeter hex. I'll start with the hex. There's a locking collar right here. And I'm going to go ahead and lower that locking collar so that it's down on the little white piece. That probably won't be the tightest final position for it, but I'm going to tighten it up right there so it holds the locking collar in place. And then the locking collar should be pointing toward the front of the aircraft. And so I'm going to point that toward the front of the aircraft and get back here and make sure it stays pointed and drill a pilot hole. Okay. And I'm going to get a screw out and put that screw in. And I'll try my electric screwdriver. That should work. And then after I get this screw in, I will, I'll tell you what, I'm going to start it with the hand screwdriver. Get it lined up. These, I'll tell you what, I'm going to stop a minute here. I'm not sure these are the right screws. The head on this screw is bigger than where it'll fit where the other one is. I'm going to make sure these are the right screws. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back, and the instructions manual does say to use these M3 by 12s, but they're just too big. They're too big for the hole. I can make a bigger hole, don't really want to do that. The second hole, the head won't fit. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to use an M2 by 10, and this one has a sort of a head with a washer on it. And then I have another M2 by 10, and the head does not have the washer on it. And so I'm going to use those two screws, not the M3s. So I've just started it into the hole there, and that'll make it easier for me to put this down in. Since it's an M2, the head is hex, and so I'm going to use a 2 millimeter hex driver to screw it in. Okay, just enough to make sure it stays there. And now I'm going to take my pin vise and drill a hole in this hole. Okay, The 10 versus 12 doesn't matter because you're not going through 10 or 12 millimeter balsa there, and it is balsa. So now I'm going to take see if I can get a pair of tweezers and get this started into this back hole here. Okay. Alright, this is going to be a little harder than I thought, but we'll manage somehow. There it goes. Alright, that screwdriver's head is actually too big. I'm going to have to get my tiny Phillips size 0. See if I can screw this in. Yeah, that'll work. Hold it tight enough. Okay. I'm just getting it down as far as I can without wrenching it down, and those two should be tight enough. There's not going to be a lot of force on there anyway, so the M2s are going to hold just fine. Okay, let me stop here, and then we'll take the rudder out. Okay, I'm back, and I've got the airplane upright, and the rudder and tail wheel are working smoothly. What I've also noted here is that when the rudder is straight with the vertical stabilizer, the nose, that wheel is not straight. So, but that's all right, we can fix that. I'm going to go ahead and pull this out, and in doing so, I don't really care where the hinges come out or not. So it looks like all 3 hinges are going to stay in the vertical stabilizer. And I'm going to make sure that the wheel arm comes out as well. So there's the wheel arm. And I'll pull these out and put them back in the rudder because I find it easier to do it that way. But this is not going to line up as straight as I want. I'm going to check that alignment. Okay, one more item about the tail wheel. I took it out to straighten it, and if you sort of hold it from the bottom down here, you can see that this tail wheel is going off that way a little. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a pencil, put it in the spring hole here, and then just pull that wheel around and break the pencil. Okay, need something. Well, that did it. So let's see. Yeah, okay. That is now straighter. I'm going to leave it that way. Use something stronger than a number 2 pencil. Thank you.